you can join us on YouTube and get all that nugget that you want as well. See what we look like live. Yeah, so you can actually get into YouTube and watch it as well. All right, talking about sickle cell. Well, for the layperson, can you explain the abnormalities that actually happen to the red blood cell and also how it affects the body?
Okay, thank you very much for that question. It was World Sickle Cell Day yesterday, the 19th of June, 2024. So straight into the question, what abnormality happens in the red blood cell for people living with sickle cell?
Mm-hmm.
So I would see, let's take the body for instance, like a system, like a robot.
Okay.
We have different wires, things like wires, which we call blood vessels, that
Mm-hmm.
move blood around our body, which is why we are able to get blood supply from our head to our toe, right? So normally, this is how the normal body system works. These
Mm-hmm.
wires are connected and the blood flows through all these processes. And normally, everybody knows what blood is, that red pigment that we see when we bleed. And, this blood has different components of it, made up of things we call red blood cells, the white blood
Red blood
cells, we
cells,
have
the
what we call the
platelets.
platelets and the
Mm-hmm.
plasma, right? And all of these, they play different functions so that, when someone can fully function as a human being and, the blood can effectively carry out its function.
Mm-hmm.
So now straight into the red blood cell. The red blood cell is produced in something called the red bone marrow, which is,
Okay.
everybody has a bone marrow in our bone. There's something they call the marrow, the innermost part,
Not.
and the red blood cells are produced there. So normally these red blood cells, they have a particular way they behave. They have particular characteristics and
Okay.
function they're meant to carry out. Normally, red blood cells is what gives, it has a part called the hemoglobin, which, gives the blood that red color. And it's also, carries, it's like what we call the oxygen transport. So it carries oxygen, right, from the heart and puts it in the blood and takes it around the body. So it means
Okay.
that like when there's any issue with this hemoglobin, it means that the person might still have blood, but
Okay.
the this function will be affected, right? So people living with sickle cell, and okay, and I also forgot to mention the red blood cell has a particular shape, which is meant to be oval in shape. Everyone knows what an oval shape is, right? It's like, oval, round, and it's meant to just
Wow.
allow the free flow of blood through these wires in quotes, which we call the blood vessels.
Blood
So
vessels.
normally the red blood cell is meant to be that shape and moving smoothly. For
Mm.
people living with sickle cell, unfortunately, this
Don't have.
red blood cells are not this actual shape which they are meant to be. They're
Mm.
now, instead of them to be oval shape, they are
They're
now
not having
sickle
them
shape or
sickle
like
shape.
crescent shape. Everyone knows like when we see a crescent moon, it's like a
Mm.
fingernail, like a sickle, like what we use in the farm, like a sickle, right? Which is where the name came from. So
Mm.
people living with this sickle cell, the red blood cells are in this shape, and it causes a lot of problems. The red blood cells get to stick together. They get to scratch on the wall of this blood vessels, in quote, like
Okay.
wires that are meant to connect blood around the body. They
Mm-hmm.
get to scratch on this walls of and they are unhealthy. They normally the red blood cells for a healthy person that is AA or AS
Okay.
can get to live for about 120 days before they break down, which is a
Mm.
natural process. But people living with sickle cell, unfortunately, their red blood cell gets to break down more, about 20 days. This breakdown is what we call medically as half-life. So we say the half-life of the red blood cell for a
Oh,
healthy
okay.
person is 120 days. But people living with sickle cell, it gets to live
Get a
for
shorter.
about 20 days, leading them to like recurrent shortage of blood, which we call medically anemia. So, this begins to happen over a period of time, and all the rest is history. They get to manifest various signs and symptoms along the
Mm.
line. I think in a nutshell, I don't want to take too much of time or make it sound too medically boring, but I've just been able to try to explain what people living with sickle cell, how their red blood cells
Get to it
behave and
to
how they're
be that way.
characterized.
Mm. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that insight. But what exactly is the difference between sickle cell disease, because yes, some people don't understand when they say someone has the sickle cell disease and someone has the sickle cell trait.
Okay, that's a very good question. So when we say sickle cell, personally, and during my advocacy journey, I've decided to replace that disease to a disorder, because I see sickle
Okay.
cell as a disorder. It's a blood disorder, affecting the red blood cells.
Okay.
So people living with sickle cell disorder,
Mm.
it means that their red blood cells have these abnormalities, which I earlier mentioned. For people living with sickle cell traits,
Mm.
I'll just explain what a sickle cell trait is. So a
Okay.
cell trait simply means that the person living with it that has like said to have a sickle cell trait has inherited one faulty gene, one sickled gene. So I'll explain what that means. For everybody has their genotype, and genotypes are made up of like two letters in quotes, which is why the common genotypes like
AA.
AS,
Yes.
AC, SS, SC. So these are all possible different types of genotypes.
Mm-hmm.
But so for me to have AA, it means that I must have gotten one A from my mom, another A from my dad,
Okay.
right? So for me to have AS, it means I've gotten one from my mom, which because my mom will be AA or AS, right? And my dad will be AA or AS. So it means you get one from them, and you get one from your dad, and you must get one from your mom. So any child's genotype, one must have been gotten from the dad, and one must have been gotten from the mom. That's what it simply means. So someone that has a sickle cell trait means that the person is a carrier of this faulty gene, which is the S, or possibly the C gene, as the case may be. So it means that they are carriers, but they don't get to exhibit any form of sickle cell characteristics. They don't have any of the sickle cell characteristics at all. So they're just carriers, and the only significance is the fact that they can also transfer these traits to their future offspring. So that's the main significance. So meaning that if someone has a sickle cell trait, he should ensure he gets married to or reproduce with someone that doesn't have a sickle cell trait, in order to not give birth to someone that has a sickle cell. So it means that if two people that have sickle cell traits are going to reproduce, there's very high chances of them to give birth to a child that have a sickle cell. So it's very important, like if you have a sickle cell trait, make sure you confirm, repeat your genotype test, and be sure that you know your genotype, and go for counseling, and make sure, when you're about to settle down, you settle down with someone that is compatible with your genotype.
Yeah, that is actually important, because like you mentioned earlier, if you are having a parent who has AS, and maybe your mom has AS, your dad has AS, there's a likely possibility that one of the children will come up with SS. It's very, very dicey to be in that situation and then not expect that to come up. I've heard where some individuals will say that it changes. Is that a thing? Can the traits change at any point in time?
No. Your genotype cannot change. But sometimes, people, I've heard that story in my practice, where someone has checked their genotype, and their parents told them that this was the genotype, but before they got married or later, they didn't get to check it. Those kind of situations, because these are labs, these are human beings checking this. There might be some human errors in post, which I'm not encouraging. But what I can advise is that if you check a genotype and there's any it's questionable for any reason, it's very important, go check your genotype again, at least maybe 2 to 3 places, to be certain, exactly, to avoid stories that such, because this kind of situations, there's no ignorance or I didn't know. It's at the end of the day, the child gets to suffer the consequences. So it's very important that we equip ourselves with the right information. So, also spread this information so we can encourage people to make informed decisions for themselves, which is why, we're making this awareness and spreading more information about it.
All right. Thank you so much for all that insight. But we definitely will be talking more about how uh health risks that actually involves when a person has sickle cell, as well as as they say, I'll use your term now, sickle cell disorder as opposed to disease. So we'll definitely be talking about that when we come back from this quick breather. Let's quickly take this quick breather. On the other side, we'll continue the conversation. Lagos, don't go nowhere. Stay tuned to Smooth 98.1. Observation that helps with this is Smooth Health on the Drive. Okay, it's just quick one, and then we'll get back in.
Yeah, absolutely. They just took my light. So.
Yeah, notice.
Right, Lagos.
So
Welcome to Lagos.
no, you're getting it wrong. We're in Nigeria. We're not abroad. So we go with the flow.
We go with what we have available.
Indeed. Jollof rice to the next level of goodness. This is when it is cooked with no seasoning cubes for that sumptuous taste. Or when you serve it with correct Nigerian salad, cabbage, carrot, lettuce, and a bit of kidney beans. It's both. Season your jollof with the rich taste of no cubes and serve with plenty of vegetables. So go ahead and elevate your meals. Today, eat for good. Yeah, what do you think about Euro's finest? For example, this Aston Martin. England's hot F, small body, big engine, like Saka in the box 8. Look at this German machine. Bends so tough like bodyguard. There we go. Guys are stop it.
The boys are this excited? Must be Showmax, where football is made in Europe and lived in Nigeria. Catch Euro 2024 on Showmax Premier League. Subscribe now from 2,900.
Smooth, refreshing music. This is Smooth Health on the Drive. Observation that helps with. This is Smooth Health on the Drive.
All right, we're going back up.
Okay.
All right, 33 minutes gone past 5, and you're still tuned in to the Smooth Health on Smooth Drive on Smooth 98.1. And indeed, today we are taking a look at sickle cells advancing, sickle cell care. And having this conversation with me is none other than Dr. Emeka Nwune. He's a medical doctor as well as a philanthropist, and he's shedding more light on what a lot of people do not understand is sickle cell disorder, as well as what the risks are and how you can manage it if you are a sickle cell carrier. But talking about sickle cell, I'd like you to actually elaborate on the health risks that are involved in this kind of scenario, especially for someone who's gotten it from his parents, obviously doesn't know anything about it, but wants to get more enlightenment on how they can avoid passing it on to the next generation. I know you did make mention of making sure that first off you don't get married to someone who has those traits, but what other things can they also be avoiding or make sure that they do?
All right, that's a very important question. Still talking about sickle cell disorder. Sickle cell disorder is a very important thing, because like till now, Nigeria is still has the highest number of people living with sickle cell. There's not a lot of sickle cell abroad. So, I mean, we are meant to be advocating more for this kind of situations and, spreading the right information because it affects us directly. It affects us economically, it affects the family. There's a lot of societal stigma attached to it. People think like if you're living with sickle cell, don't come to our sporting ground, don't come and play sports so you don't fall down here. Don't stress yourself. There's a lot in the society which, sometimes like even with the healthcare system, You know, even before people that are sick come to the hospital, they get to stop by one or two chemists, you know, their neighbors, local people around. So my point with all this is that, you know, we're trying as much as possible to do this education online, and for the people listening, but you know, we still need to carry this information to the grassroots level to reach out to people. Sometimes there's some young girls they even get old enough to get to make informed decisions for themselves before they get married at the age of like 12. So when do they even have the time to check their genotypes or know these things, and these other people that, some people are online, they don't even understand English. So there are a lot of challenges, but the point is that we'll try to, as much as possible, keep spreading the gospel, to keep advocating for these things. And people living with sickle cell, it's not their fault. They didn't give birth to themselves. They just found themselves in that condition. We need to show them love. We need to understand what they're going through so that we know how to support them emotionally, and as the case may be. We need inclusion for them in society more and more. Sometimes some people, there are some situations where people are born with sickle cell and they don't even come down with any symptoms. They're not sick at all until probably they get to like the age of like 16. And they fall sick for the first time and they realize, okay, what's going on? I might be sick. And the issue with those kind of situations is the fact that, people, when they haven't fallen sick all this while and they have that kind of sickness, most times it gets to be more severe compared to someone that has been falling sick earlier. But typically, like, sickle cell warriors go through a lot of signs. First of all, from the medical point of view, if I see someone that has sickle cell, most likely I'll know because there's a particular way they look. There's a look.
Okay. So I was going to ask you what the symptoms are. Now you say there's a particular way they look. So what other things can one be looking out for to identify someone who's going through this disorder?
Okay, like I was saying, still the goal is for us to support them. So I'm not trying to,
stigmatize them. No, it's not.
But there's a certain way they look, and sometimes there's a certain way, like their teeth get to protrude as well, and there's certain features that they have, that we notice. And apart from those symptoms, a lot of them get to have what we call jaundice, yellowness in the eyes, which we it's not just people living with sickle cell that have this jaundice. A lot of other conditions too can have jaundice, like liver conditions, and a whole lot of other conditions can lead to jaundice. Apart from that, they get to feel pain crisis, which come from time to time. It can come anytime, any day, anywhere, any part of the body. And it ranges in terms of severity. Some people can feel pain, which can be 1/10 in terms of severity. Some can feel 10/10, and sometimes the pain can just be there persistently.
For a long period.
Some of them can, they get to have a whole lot of other issues like swelling in their hand and their feet, or even on their abdomen. Sometimes, they get to have recurrent infections. They get to have fever that just come from nowhere. You treat for malaria, treat for this, give them this, and that fever is not still going. They get to have injuries, which we call ulcers, from time to time. And if not properly taken care of, it can really get infected and become a more serious, complex problem. Even the males sometimes they have what we call priapism. In this case, they get to sustain an erection that they didn't intend to have, and it just stays like that for a long time. Which would most times require some medical intervention for that to relieve. And it's very, just imagine, just paint that picture in your head, very uncomfortable. So they get to experience this and much more. Sometimes what triggers most of all is, from my experience in the clinics that we've had where we've got to attend to a lot of sickle cell patients, most times it gets to be like extreme temperatures, cold or extreme heat, stress most times, which can be attributed to like emotional stress, maybe
Okay.
stress from like family or work or different kinds of stress. That because don't forget that these people, they have to earn a living, they have to take care of their families, they have to go to work like every normal person. And sometimes in society, nobody really cares about their condition. They have to go get paid like every normal person. So it means they have to put in work. So we have to consider all these things, and the stress and all of that get to trigger their symptoms, even malaria,
Just
because obviously
little and
we're
then
living in a
trigger the.
malaria endemic region, yeah. Amongst a whole lot of others like dehydration as well, which is why we encourage them, to always water is like medication to them. Like sickle cell patients are advised to stay rehydrated. Like, if you're a newly diagnosed sickle cell warrior, it's very important. Drink a lot of water, take a lot of fruits and vegetables, know your body, know what works for you. Try to have balanced diet, make sure you have more protein in your plates than carbohydrates. You're going to eat about whatever. Make sure there's more of the fish, more of the meats, more of the vegetables than, the carbohydrates.
And
If
the
you're going to eat
carbohydrates.
rice, more of the vegetables, more of all the proteins and fresh, fiber and healthy stuff. Don't, exercise. It's very important to also exercise, stretch. But like I said, you have to know your body and know what works for you. I know a sickle cell warrior that played rugby professionally, for about 10 years in the UK. Yeah, and he's Nigerian at ABC, and he has a sickle cell foundation as well. So, like there are exercises and lifestyle things that can work for you. Read up more, and if you are not in any community or, sickle cell NGO, it's very important for you to look for anyone around you. If possible, you can reach out. Maybe you reach out to Ayo. Ayo can let you know how to contact us, and we can suggest for you because those communities help. You need to meet other sickle cell warriors, know how they deal with their own situations, figure out collaborations. Because I know like some companies also are working in this, inclusive. They are being inclusive where they are providing funds for people that are living with sickle cell in particular, in terms of like them pitching their businesses and creative ideas. So there are a lot of avenues online. And what I would say is that you're not alone. You need to reach out to find out because nobody's going to meet you where you are at home. You need to go out to make decisions for yourself. And yeah.
All right. Well, I have so many other questions here that are definitely, niggling in the back of my head. But one of the major questions I want to ask is, as always, people say they want a cure for every, ailment that's out there. My question is there any progressive cure for anyone living with the sickle cell disorder?
That's a very good question. Well, to be honest, there's something we call stem cell or bone marrow transplants. And these are the only current scientifically proven methods to cure sickle cell disorder. But unfortunately, they're not done very often because just because of the significant risks involved. And in this bone marrow transplant, it simply means like you're transplanting the bone marrow from someone else to someone that's living with sickle cells, like a transplant, like transplanting the healthy ones too. But the issue with this is that it's very selective, and they have to run through a lot of tests. They have to spend a lot of money to confirm your compatibility, and the compatibility has to be like it has to, you have to pass a lot of tests before it gets to that level where they say, okay, yes, you and this guy, you and this person is a match, and we can do the transplant. And so all that process is very complex, and a lot of times it just takes a lot. But
it
like
takes
I
a
said,
lot
that's
from
the
the
only known.
financially, physically, and every otherwise from that individual to go through that process.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for all this enlightened, information. And I'm hoping that when next we reach out to you, you'll be coming through and sharing more insights. But how can the rest of Lagos reach out to you on your social media handles?
Oh yes, you can reach out to us on Swift Medics. That's at Swift @Emeka_medics. Or you can reach out to my personal Instagram, Emeka_Nwune. I mean, on social media, if you just Google Swift Medics Healthcare, we're definitely open to collaborating with anyone, any human being, that is out there raising awareness for sickle cell. We get to advocate for every as much as possible. You don't have to be a celebrity. You could be in your house and just spreading information in your school, on campus, and also implore church leaders, religious leaders in the mosque, community leaders. Let's come together, spread awareness for sickle cell, and let's keep spreading the word. Involve government people to see how we can create policies to favor everyone. And I'm sure we keep doing this. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Keep spreading the word. Thank you so much. But Ali says to say hello and thank you so much for the good work you're doing. And indeed, yes, thank you so much for all the enlightening information you shared this evening. And I trust you'll have yourself a pleasant evening as well.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a lovely day, Ayo. Take care.
All right. Thank you so much. And yes, thank you, Lagos, as well, for sharing, for being a part of Smooth Health. It comes your way every Thursday. Well, next week, Thursday will be another opportunity to share some healthy tips as well. So you need to stay tuned to Smooth 98.1. Don't go nowhere. Stay tuned.
Every Thursday at 5:15.
Thank you so much for,
You're
all
welcome.
the insight. I've